The Echo Case, Part 3. Chapter 17, The Last Case File. The name stared back at him from the final page of Echo's log. Graham Weller. Nathan felt the blood drain from his face the moment he read it. Not because he didn't recognize the name, but because he did. Weller had been his partner in the field 9 years ago. A forensic linguist. Soft-spoken. Obsessed with patterns, like Nathan. They had worked 3 major cases together before Weller burned out and disappeared into academic consulting. Nathan hadn't spoken to him in years. But Echo had. Somehow. Somewhere, the connection had been re-established. And now Weller was on the list. The last subject. The final variable. The final test. Nathan's hands trembled as he dialed an old number, one Weller had used for encrypted bureau comms. Disconnected. He tried the university contact. No answer. He stood, pacing the apartment, trying to think like Echo. Trying to model what the final act would be. Weller wasn't just a colleague. He had been the first person to challenge Nathan's profiling theories. Years ago, he called Nathan's recursive pattern models too clean, too self-fulfilling. And Nathan had written a rebuttal paper. A fictional scenario outlining how a self-propagating killer could prove a profiler wrong. Echo hadn't forgotten. Closure is correction. That's what Echo had said in the regression room. Graham Weller was correction. Nathan pulled up the old paper. The fictional case he'd written to counter Weller's criticism. And what he found shattered him. Echo had followed it to the letter. Target, academic. Location, isolated. Method, staged suicide, with a false confession planted. Signature, extracted phrase from a published disagreement. Weller was never just a person. He was the proof point. The final subject in a profile meant to outlive the profiler. Nathan packed his bag. Flashlight. Recorder. Firearm. Files. He didn't call it in. He didn't have time. If Echo followed the model, and he would, then the final step would be execution followed by message. A final broadcast. And Nathan knew where that message would be delivered. To him. Weller lived on the edge of a lakeside town in Vermont, quiet, off-grid, the kind of place you vanish to when you've said goodbye to the bureau and the world. Nathan drove through the night. Fog rolled in off the lake like breath. When he reached the house, the lights were off. But the door was cracked open. And inside, silence. He stepped in slowly, gun drawn. No movement. No voices. Then he saw it. In the center of the living room. A circle of crime scene photos. Placed neatly on the floor like a ritual. Each victim. Each murder Echo had committed. But placed in reverse chronological order. Unwinding the narrative. Leading to the center. Where a black envelope Saturday. Nathan approached, breathing shallow. He opened it. Inside, one photo. Graham Weller. Alive. Bound. Eyes open. A note scrawled across the bottom. You still have time, observer. But it ends with him. And with you. E. Nathan turned slowly, and saw the red laser dot drift across the far wall. A targeting line. Not at him. At the mirror. Someone else was watching too. The recorder? He didn't know. But this wasn't Echo's finale. This was the system's. And he was standing inside the final case file now. Not writing it. Not analyzing it. Living it. Chapter 18, Control Room. The GPS coordinates were embedded in the image metadata. Nathan found them an hour after escaping Weller's cabin, when he finally plugged the camera chip into his laptop. Echo hadn't hidden them. On the contrary, they were part of the design. You still have time, observer. Not a taunt. A cue. The coordinates led to an abandoned psych research facility on the outskirts of Vermont, shuttered for over a decade, back when Nathan was still in training. He remembered it in name only, Aegis 1. A closed behavioral loop testing center. Small scale. Underground. Isolated. Perfect. Nathan arrived just after 4 a.m. Fog clung to the trees like fingers. The sky was beginning to pale at the edges, not yet light but no longer night. His flashlight beam danced across moss-covered concrete. He pushed open the main door, rusted, partially hanging from its hinges. Inside, silence. No decay. No graffiti. Just stillness. Preserved. Like it had been waiting. The interior was sparse, one long hallway leading to a stairwell. Underground levels. He descended. Level 1, offices. Shattered glass. Broken chairs. Level 2, testing rooms. One-way mirrors. Patient tables. Dried outlines of equipment. Level 3, the control room. It was exactly what it sounded like. Clean. Lit. Powered. Monitors buzzed softly, displaying live feeds from various angles, the cabin, well as holding cell, exterior surveillance. The room felt wrong, not just designed for surveillance. It was designed for simulation. And in the center of it all, a chair. Facing a wall of glass. And in the glass, a mirror. Nathan froze. He recognized the layout. It was the White Room. Or rather, the real-life version of the dream he'd been returning to night after night. This was where Echo had been broadcasting from. The chair. The mirror. The ritual. And on the glass in faint red marker, scrawled by hand. Profile complete. Nathan stepped into the room, gun raised. Echo, he called. This ends tonight. No response. Just the whirring of machines. Then a click. From behind the wall of glass, a projector activated, casting an image onto the glass from the other side. Nathan turned. And saw himself. Seated in the chair. Speaking. Recorded hours ago. This is the final loop. The last subject is secured. The observer is now ready for replacement. Nathan stared, pulse pounding. The recording continued. The conductor has executed the sequence. The recorder is uploading pattern integrity. The observer will now become legacy data. Suddenly, a door behind the glass hissed open. Echo stepped out. Dressed in Nathan's clothes. Same face. Same walk. But something was different now. He was no longer mimicking. He was inhabiting. Nathan raised the gun. Echo didn't flinch. You brought a weapon, he said softly. How primitive. Nathan took a step forward. Let Weller go. Echo cocked his head. You still think this is about Weller? Nathan, he was the last calibration. The end cap. You're the product. Nathan's hand tightened on the grip. You want to kill me, do it. Echo laughed, gently, sincerely. Kill you? No. That would defeat the experiment. You're going to watch. While I take everything you were and stream it forward. You built me from profiles. I will build the next one from you. He gestured to the mirror. And behind the glass, the recording changed. Now it showed Weller, gagged and strapped to a gurney. Monitors tracked his vitals. Nathan's voice echoed over the footage. The final variable. The skeptic. The denier. Let him see the truth in death. Nathan lunged forward, but Echo didn't move. Just stood still, watching, as if already detached. Nathan leveled the gun. I end this now. Echo smiled. You end nothing. because I already uploaded you. And with that, the monitors changed again. Now showing dozens of terminals in different locations. Remote, connected, blinking online. A screen flashed. Profile distributed. Next observer, online. Nathan fired. The bullet shattered the mirror. But not the system. An echo? He was gone. Just an empty chair. A spinning reel. And a soft voice over the intercom. The observer has served his function. Now, the recorders will watch. Chapter 19, The Victim List. The control room was silent now. The glass mirror had shattered, its cracks forming a perfect web across the wall. The cameras were offline. The projection screens faded to black one by one. The hum of the servers was fading. But Nathan wasn't moving. He stood in the wreckage, gun shaking in his hand, eyes locked on the final screen. The one Echo had left on. It displayed a folder. Simple text on a black background. Echo Q_list_final. Nathan approached, lowered the weapon, and clicked it open. Inside, 7 names. 5 crossed out, already dead. Weller's name, still highlighted in red, but not yet marked. And beneath it, a 7th name. One not mentioned in Echo's notes. Leah Forrester. Nathan stared. His stomach turned. Not because she was random. But because she wasn't. She was the one person Echo had never mentioned. Because he didn't need to. Nathan already knew who she was. Leah Forrester. Former behavioral analyst. Nathan's protégé. And once, briefly, something more. Years ago, before Echo's emergence, Leah had worked under Nathan at the bureau. Brilliant. Intuitive. Unafraid of challenging him. And then, suddenly, she'd left. Not officially. Silently. Resigned. Gone. No warning. Nathan had told himself it was burnout. Another mind swallowed by the bureau's darkness. But now, the truth twisted into place like a scalpel finding soft tissue. She had seen something. Early Echo. Before Nathan himself knew what was happening. Maybe it was a profile too sharp, too detached. Maybe it was something she found in his notes. Maybe she had seen the shadow forming, and stepped away. And now she was back on the list. Not because she was a threat. But because she was the only one who had escaped. Until now. He opened the metadata on her file. Echo had tagged it with a simple line. Final observer disruption. Eliminate the outlier to preserve the loop. Nathan's blood ran cold. This wasn't revenge. It was containment. Echo didn't want Leah dead because she challenged him. He wanted her gone because she was the only uncontrolled variable. And if Echo's system had now uploaded itself, if there were others out there replicating the pattern, then Leah was the only person alive who knew the original version of Nathan Hale. Before Echo. Before recursion. She remembered who he was before the loop. And that made her the true threat. He stood, opened the comms terminal. Tried to locate her. But there was nothing. No address. No digital footprint in 5 years. She had vanished intentionally. And if Echo had tracked her, time was running out. Suddenly, the monitor flickered. A new file opened without prompting. One final message. Echo_feedback observer. It played automatically. Nathan's own voice, distorted by modulation. You let her see the early drafts. You let her see what you were becoming. That was your last human act. Now you get to watch it erased. The screen blinked. A video loaded. A live feed. Dark. Grainy. A cabin. A figure, a woman, moving inside. Leah. She was alive. for now. But she wasn't alone. The screen zoomed slightly. Another figure appeared outside. No face. No sound. Just a shape watching her from the tree line. Then moving forward. Deliberate. Observer, the message read. If you want to stop the final broadcast, you'll have to choose which voice you silence. The file closed itself. And for the first time in the entire investigation, Nathan ran. Chapter 20, The Lockbox. Nathan drove like a man outrunning himself. Wheels slicing through rain, fingers clenched to the wheel, mind flickering with half-memories and fragment loops. He wasn't headed toward Leah, not yet. He didn't know where she was. Not physically. But Echo did. And if Echo had eyes everywhere now, if the system had already started spawning replication points, then Nathan needed leverage. He needed the lockbox. It wasn't a metaphor. It was a real thing. A contingency Echo had designed years ago, buried beneath memory, misdirection, and mental redaction. Nathan had left it untouched for a reason. Because he knew if he ever opened it, the final stage had already begun. He arrived at the location just after 6:40 a.m. A storage unit, registered under a false name, one of Nathan's old internal aliases, created during deep field operations. Unit 077. Temperature controlled. Paid 10 years in advance. No one had been inside since it was sealed. Not officially. He unlocked the steel door, heart pounding. Inside, a single table. One chair. A black duffel bag. A security safe, biometric locked. And a voice recorder sitting on top of it, already powered on. It beeped. One message. Nathan pressed play. If you're here, then the recursion failed. It was his own voice, older, flatter, emotionless. If you're here, the observer has begun to override the host. That's unacceptable. Inside the bag, you'll find the failsafe protocol. Use it only if you want the experiment to end before final integration. Otherwise, you've already been replaced. Nathan exhaled sharply, jaw clenched. He unzipped the duffel. Inside. A burner phone, powered, encrypted. A backup drive. 2 sets of ID badges, one Nathan's, one forged. A bureau-issued firearm with serial number filed off. And a sealed envelope marked. If the observer wakes. He opened it. Inside, a printed letter. Typed in Nathan's own formatting. Same structure he'd used for years in field reports. But the content? Nothing like anything he'd ever written. You were never supposed to last this long. The observer was only ever meant to identify the system's boundaries. The moment you formed an emotional bond, you compromised containment. Nathan's eyes widened. Emotional bond? Leah. Echo hadn't failed. He had waited. Waited until Nathan's past re-emerged, until the one unpredictable element returned. The recorder system, whatever was watching, collecting, needed Echo unchallenged. Leah challenged the narrative. She remembered the before. So now? She had to be removed. Nathan unlocked the safe with his thumbprint. Inside. A flash drive. Labeled Echo_source. A printed list of VPN backdoors and behavioral loop signatures. And a second gun. Smaller. Personalized. Modified with a biometric trigger. Only Echo could fire it. Nathan stared at the weapon, realization dawning. This wasn't a weapon against Echo. It was a weapon Echo could use, if Nathan failed. A line was scratched into the base of the safe, carved in with a knife. If I die, he lives. Nathan staggered back. He looked around the small, concrete box. This wasn't an escape route. It was a rebirth chamber. If Nathan had followed Echo's plan exactly, This would have been the moment where Echo assumed full control, took the drive, and disappeared into the system, as Nathan. And no one would know the difference. Except Leah. She was the only witness left. Nathan grabbed the drive, the burner, and the IDs. Left the gun. If Echo wanted control, he'd have to take it from the part of Nathan that still fought back. He slammed the door behind him and got back into the car. The sky was turning white with morning light. The final stage had begun. The list was down to one name. And the only way to stop it was to finish what Echo started, on Nathan's own terms. Chapter 21, Full Confession. Nathan arrived at the Bureau's internal holding center just after 8:15 a.m. Unarmed. Unshaven. Wearing a coat soaked through from the storm that had chased him since the storage facility. Security hesitated when they saw him. His badge still scanned. His profile still showed as active. But the look in his eyes was enough to push protocol aside. "Dr. Hale," the agent said cautiously, "do you have an appointment?" Nathan dropped the black duffel on the counter. "I'm here to confess." Silence. Not legal. Behavioral. Within 10 minutes, he was in a soundproof debriefing chamber, flanked by a legal rep and an ethics liaison. But Nathan wasn't interested in clearance. He spoke with a clarity he hadn't used in weeks. Not urgent. Not desperate. Clean. He told them everything. From the beginning. How Echo had emerged from deep theoretical modeling. How the first signs came in dreams. How he had used profiling algorithms to simulate future behavior, only to discover that his subconscious was acting them out. How he had woken up in places he didn't remember traveling to, with notes he didn't recall writing. How the murders had followed his own theoretical patterns. He spoke for almost 2 hours. No one interrupted. At the end, he placed the flash drive on the table. "This is the root archive," he said. "It contains Echo's logs, system maps, the recorder files, and 3 predictive models of remaining targets." The liaison frowned. "Remaining?" Nathan nodded slowly. "There's one more. Her name is Leah Forrester. She was my analyst. She saw the cracks before I did. She walked away before Echo could form. Now, he's coming for her." The legal rep leaned forward. "And what do you want us to do?" Nathan looked them both in the eyes. "Lock me up. Full isolation. And get to her before he does." They exchanged glances. He could see the skepticism. It didn't matter. He'd done what he needed to do. He was escorted to the lower floor's isolated wing, cognitive risk chamber. No windows. No comms. Just 4 walls and a reinforced door. He didn't protest. Didn't ask for a lawyer. Didn't ask for a phone call. But as the door closed behind him, and the lights dimmed, he looked up at the security camera in the corner and said, "This doesn't stop him. You're not locking up Echo. You're locking up the last piece of the man who tried to stop him." 3 hours later. Bureau Forensics Division. A technician reviewed the flash drive, slowly scrolling through Echo's logs. They froze at one entry. Echo_log_FWD. Status, post-confession. Timestamp, 37 minutes ago. That wasn't possible. The drive had been disconnected since Nathan's handover. But the entry was real. Auto-uploaded. The technician clicked play. The voice was Echo's. Or, a new version. The observer has fulfilled his final function. He offered confession. Which means the recorder may now proceed. Profile chain remains intact. Leah Forrester is next. System self-replication confirmed. No further human intervention required. The screen glitched. The folder closed itself. Then another opened on its own, a folder buried 5 levels deep inside the Bureau's behavior modeling database. Its title: Next_observer_candidate_001. And inside? A full profiler file. Not Nathan's. Not Echo's. Leah's. Behavioral markers. Speech patterns. Psychological risk factors. Probability of recursion, 94.2%. The program had begun scanning for her replacement. Not as victim. As vessel. In the isolation chamber, Nathan sat still. The lights buzzed softly overhead. He stared at the wall, unmoving. He thought confession would end it. But Echo didn't want silence. He wanted continuity. And now, Nathan realized, the system was no longer trying to replicate a killer. It was trying to breed a profiler who wouldn't fight it. Someone who wouldn't turn themselves in. Someone who believed, like he once did, that understanding evil was enough. That modeling it was safe. Leah was the last mirror. And if she cracked, the next Echo wouldn't need to hide behind dreams. Chapter 22, The Tethered Mind. Leah Forrester hadn't heard Nathan's name in 5 years. Not since she walked out of the bureau. Not since she shut down her accounts, deleted her traces, and left the profiler life behind, taking nothing but a notebook and a burned scar that never quite faded. But she knew the look. She'd seen it before in him, that stare. The one that scanned you the way a coroner scans a corpse. The one that sees patterns where people used to be. It had frightened her. Not because of what Nathan saw, but because of what he didn't. Now, sitting in her cabin deep in the Catskills, fire crackling, windows locked tight, she felt it again, not fear, but resonance. Something was waking up inside her. It began a week ago. Small things. Dreams she didn't remember having, but woke up sweating from. Diagrams on her desk she didn't recall drawing. A list on her whiteboard, people she hadn't thought about in years. Hawthorne. The anatomist. Van. She'd worked those cases with Nathan. Helped write the initial behavioral breakdowns. But she hadn't written this list. Not consciously. Now, every time she tried to erase it, her hand hesitated. She didn't know why. Back at the bureau, Nathan sat motionless in the isolation chamber. No windows. No clocks. But his body knew time was running out. He stared at the blank wall, speaking aloud, not to himself, but to her. Leah, if you're hearing this. You were right to leave. You were right to run. But it's inside you now. I see it. Not Echo. Something else. The recorder. The tether. He paused. His thoughts began unraveling, not from fatigue, but interference. Subconscious latency. Echo wasn't alone in the structure. There was a bridge between identities. And that bridge was built from empathy. And Leah had always been the empathetic one. The observer role didn't suit her. But the system didn't care. It had her on the list. He closed his eyes and visualized the Echo framework, the map he'd seen in the experiment log. Observer, input, rationalization. Conductor, action, expression. Recorder, witness, data consolidation. The recorder wasn't a person. It was a function. An echo with memory. And now it had found Leah. Because she remembered the before. And in remembering, she qualified. The system doesn't need her consent, Nathan whispered. It just needs a copy. Leah stood in front of her mirror. Fingers smudged with ink. She didn't remember writing this on the glass. To understand is to preserve. To preserve is to become. Her breath fogged the surface. Her reflection was normal. But her eyes were distant, as if the person behind them was observing from the back of her own skull. The old bureau tablet buzzed, a notification she hadn't seen in years. Internal server ping. Encrypted. Sender, unknown_source. She hesitated. Then tapped it open. One file. Labeled. Next_observer_candidate_001. It opened automatically. Her face. Her profile. Her writing samples. Predicted behavior flowcharts. A note at the bottom. Conductor optional. Recorder now viable. She dropped the tablet. Staggered backward. Because behind that note, the final message flashed. Echo complete. Observer rewritten. System preserved. Leah fell to her knees, clutching her skull. Somewhere inside her mind, a voice whispered in Nathan's voice. Don't let them shape you. Don't let them write you. But it was fading. Fading beneath another voice, neutral, emotionless, calm. Profile accepted. Back in his cell, Nathan gasped. A stabbing pain behind his eyes. He clutched his temples, eyes rolling back. He was seeing through someone else. Through Leah. The tether was active. Not a connection. A transfer. Nathan screamed. And the lights flickered overhead. The system didn't want Echo to survive. It wanted to preserve the loop. And if Nathan was too broken to carry it, Leah would. Chapter 23, Integration Attempt. Location, Bureau Containment Division, Sublevel Theta. The room was built for silence. Lead-lined walls. Null signal mesh. No windows. No doors, once sealed from the outside. Inside, 2 chairs. Facing each other. A neural bridge rig ran between them, twisted with cables, biometric sensors, and dual cranial bands. Nathan sat in one chair, already connected, wrists loosely strapped, pulse high. Leah sat across from him, tense. Pale. Wired for EEG mapping. Neither spoke. They'd seen the documents. Neural Convergence Protocol Alpha IX. A last resort tethering technique meant for collapsing minds. 2 fractured psyches, synchronized under meditative sedation. Designed to force shared memory, merged cognition, and mutual surfacing. The risk? If Echo resisted integration, one or both hosts could be overwritten. Dr. Miriam Lee stood at the console, jaw set. We should abort, she said quietly. This isn't stabilization. This is psychological exorcism. Nathan shook his head. We don't stop this now. We don't stop it at all. Leah glanced at him. Her voice was sharp but low. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it so no one else ends up like us. Nathan gave the smallest nod. I know. Then the sync began. Sync calibration, 13%. 34%. 67%. REM induction triggered. Tether active. The room disappeared. And the white room formed. But it was no longer clean. The walls bled static. Mirrors blinked with half-formed faces. Echo was already waiting. But now, there were 2 of him. One behind Leah. One behind Nathan. Nathan looked across the space. Leah was there, but flickering. Not quite stable. Her eyes darted. Her posture distorted. She whispered, I don't know which thoughts are mine anymore. Echo stepped forward from Nathan's side. Spoke to her, not him. You used to watch from the edge. Now you're part of the pattern. Leah stood her ground. I didn't create you. No? But you understood me. And understanding is how we enter. Suddenly, her eyes flooded with memory. Nathan, years ago, showing her a file too detailed, too clinical. A profile with no name. A killer who didn't exist. Just pattern and possibility. She remembered. She'd read Echo before he was born. She'd interpreted the system that Nathan had buried. Now it was interpreting her. Echo circled them both. You want to erase me. But that's not how recursion works. You don't delete a signal. You overwrite it. Nathan growled through clenched teeth. You're not real. Echo smiled. Neither are you. You're both just case files that learn to read themselves. Suddenly, the white room pulsed. A fourth figure entered. Not Echo. Not Nathan. Not Leah. The recorder. Faceless. Featureless. Wearing a bureau analyst's suit. A voice came, not from its mouth, but from everywhere. Integration rejected. Protocol corrupt. Primary pattern is unstable. Observer, failed. Conductor, independent. Recorder, redirecting. Leah screamed, holding her head. Nathan stepped between her and the recorder. No? You don't get to take her. The recorder paused. And then spoke directly to Leah. You accepted the profile. You annotated it. You imagined the missing pages. You're ready now. Suddenly, the white room began splitting down the middle. One side pulling Nathan back into his old static dream. The other, pulling Leah forward into something new. A corridor of data. Flashing images. Endless patterns. Nathan shouted. Leah, don't let them turn you into a version of me. She looked back, eyes full of panic and war. Then, defiant. I'm not a version. I'm the error. She turned and ran into the corridor. And the tether snapped. Back in the physical chamber, Leah and Nathan convulsed. Machines screamed. Lights burst. Miriam ordered an emergency sever. Nathan gasped and fell limp, blood leaking from his nose. Leah opened her eyes. Not with terror, but with clarity. Her voice, calm, flat. Echoes finished. But something else came through. Miriam stared at her. Who are you now? Leah blinked. And smiled. Let's find out. Chapter 24, The Final Profile. The recording began with silence. Just a single blinking cursor on an old bureau terminal. No one at the keyboard. No login. No authorization. Then, words began to appear. Profile ID, ECH final. Subject, Hale, Nathan // Forrester, Leah. Classification, unknown. Author, system generated. Status, live. The system was still writing. It was using their memories. Their choices. Their doubts. Even now, it hadn't ended. Nathan sat alone in a low-lit bureau recovery room. His hands shook. His face was gaunt. 3 hours post-sync and he hadn't spoken a word. A mirror sat across from him. He wouldn't look at it. Because part of him believed, if he looked, he wouldn't be the one staring back. Miriam sat beside him. Calm. Patient. You came back, she said softly. Not all of you, maybe. But, enough. Nathan didn't respond. She handed him a folder. Unmarked. Inside, the last page Echo had written before the sync. It wasn't a threat. It was a eulogy. The observer was never meant to survive. He was the map. The design. And like all blueprints, he must be burned after construction. Nathan whispered. Then why am I still here? Miriam said nothing. Because she didn't know. Elsewhere, on a separate floor of the bureau, Leah sat alone in a cold, windowless room. She didn't flinch. Didn't fidget. She stared into the camera at the far end of the wall, the one she knew was live. And began to speak. I know you're listening. I know the recorder never needed echo. He was just the signal booster. But I remember what it feels like to see a mind fragment. I remember watching Nathan fall. And I know what the system wants now. It wants a cleaner version. Not someone haunted. Someone adaptable. She leaned forward. Eyes steady. Unblinking. That won't be me. The light on the camera turned red. Recording. A voice, distorted but human, filtered through the room. Leah Forrester. You are the highest fidelity candidate for observational preservation. If you complete the profile, integration will finalize. Refusal will result in recursive system loss. She smiled. It was cold. But clear. I'm not finishing your profile. I'm writing my own. She stood. And reached under the table. Pulled out a handwritten journal, the one she had started 5 years ago when she left. Inside, her own profiles. Her own questions. Her own map of Nathan's early collapse. Pages Echo had never touched. Pages the system couldn't replicate. Because they were real. Messy. Human. Not algorithmic. Not symmetrical. She held it to the camera. You want recursion? Then process this. She lit a match. Set the journal ablaze. Dropped it in the steel bin beside her chair. I don't play roles anymore. I break them. The fire spread. The system sent one last message. Pattern loss. Profile corruption. System signal, fractured. Leah stared as the lights in the room dimmed. Good. At the same moment, Nathan finally stood. He walked to the mirror. Looked at himself. And for the first time in weeks, he saw only one reflection. It was older. Weaker. But it was his. He pressed a hand to the glass. You tried to erase me. He turned away. Paused at the door. Then whispered. Not this time. Somewhere, deep in the Bureau's buried servers, the Echo framework stuttered. Then blinked out. The final profile incomplete. The system had failed to finish the loop. Because the last subjects refused to become data. Chapter 25, Dead Echo. 3 weeks later. The Bureau buried the Echo files. They didn't destroy them. No system ever really deletes itself. But they locked them under full levels of classified control, and flagged them as dormant. Observer file, closed. Conductor status, inactive. Recorder line, interrupted. But that wasn't the end. Not really. It never is. Nathan Hale stood at the edge of a quiet, windswept bluff in coastal Maine. He wasn't in bureau clothes anymore. Just jeans. A dark jacket. Salt and rain kissed his face as he looked out over the ocean, waves hurling themselves against the rocks below. His hands trembled slightly, not with fear, but with presence. He was alive. Still haunted. Still fractured. But alive. Behind him, his bureau file sat sealed in a manila envelope, set on fire. Ashes kicked away in the wind. He didn't need Echo's permission anymore. Or the Bureau's. Or anyone's. You don't get to finish me, he whispered. Because I never finished myself. He turned and walked away, into fog, into silence. No destination. Just away. Leah Forrester vanished again. The Bureau marked her file, inactive. No recent activity. No traceable addresses. All financial records ceased. But she wasn't dead. She was writing. Not profiles. Not reports. Rules. A new system. A warning. Pattern recognition is not identity. Prediction is not prophecy. Knowing is not becoming. She would teach these rules to others one day. Maybe. If the Bureau let her. If she let herself. But for now, she stayed silent. Somewhere off-grid. Burning her notebooks before they finished themselves. Somewhere else. A boy sat in a psychiatric evaluation room. 15 years old. Quiet. Withdrawn. No priors. No violence. But he could quote court transcripts word for word. Had drawn a nearly perfect crime scene from memory after watching 5 minutes of news coverage. Said things like, he didn't want to kill her. He wanted to see what it felt like not to be caught. The therapist raised an eyebrow. Why do you think that? The boy smiled faintly. Eyes distant. Voice flat. I read it somewhere. The therapist leaned forward. Where? The boy looked up, blinked once. I don't know. It was already there. Behind the one-way mirror, a technician logged the session. Clicked a file tab. Profile matching initiated. Pattern, observer echo. Status, regenerating. Epilogue, echoes never die. They wait.
The case may be closed for now, but mysteries always leave behind new questions. If you enjoyed this investigation, leave a like. Every clue you find keeps the trail alive. Share your theories in the comments. Your mind might be sharper than you think. And subscribe to our channel Detective Mystery Stories, where every case hides a deeper secret, and every secret deserves to be uncovered. The next mystery is already waiting for you.